Hi everyone, you're watching the Virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Lodha. Well, today's topic for discussion would be on fundamentals of capital markets. So capital markets is one field, one area of law that has attained a lot of popularity in the recent years. You keep hearing this from law students, from young lawyers, but unfortunately that inclination towards this field, that interest has not been able to successfully manifest in successful and lucrative careers because there's nobody to guide them to help them out. So today we decided to seek some assistance from an expert in this field. And joining us today on the virtual amicus is the youngest lawyer from India to have been ranked as a rising star lawyer by Legal 500 and IFLR 1000, both at Asia Pacific level. So in conversation with Miss Sweta Ananthanarayanan, who is a senior associate at AZB and Partners in Mumbai. And just to give you all a brief introduction about her amicus for today's session, she's a capital markets lawyer working with one of the leading law firms in India, AZB and Partners. As a senior associate, she has been front leading various complex capital market transactions. Some of her landmark capital markets transactions include acting for India's largest ever equity fund, raise of 7 billion US dollars by oil to telecom giant Reliant Industries Limited, acting for TPG-backed company Nykaa on one of the largest IPOs undertaken for 53,512 INR million, and acting on India's largest simultaneous QIP and ADR issuance by HDFC Bank for 1.80 billion US dollars. She's the youngest lawyer, as I reiterated, from India to have been ranked as a rising star lawyer by Legal 500 and IFLR 1000, both at Asia Pacific level. And outside of work, and there's this huge body of work that we just discussed, and impressive work, she enjoys and still takes out time for dancing, mentoring students, and playing squash. So the second is something that, really fascinates me, mentoring students. So I'm so happy that in spite of being such a big star in your field, you still take out time to mentor students and play squash. So sporting activities is something that I've always emphasized upon. Fitness is everything in life. So thank you, Sweta, for taking our time. I'm so sorry. At the outset, I wish to apologize for spoiling your Saturday plans. I know you only get that
Not at
one
all.
day. So anything that you wish to say about our channel before we proceed with our much anticipated Q&A session?
Thank you so much, Jay, for having this initiative. I wish I had access to such a channel when I was a law student because I have been, an ardent listener and follower of your channel. I
Oh,
have gained so much knowledge and expertise from the various speakers who have been on your channel. So I think it's a great initiative. And I can see the difference that it can make to students because from my experience of mentoring students, I see how much access they can get to fields outside of the curriculum that they have experience to. So this is an amazing initiative. Thank you for having me on your channel, and I think this is a great way to spend my weekend.
fantastic. Glad you said that. So thank you so much for all the kind words. Let's quickly start with our Q&A segment. If you're ready, we can
Sure.
start then.
Yes, sure.
So question number one coming your way. Please discuss the role of a capital markets attorney or a lawyer, and what kind or types of transactions is a capital markets lawyer spearheading? Since you're a prolific and a highly respected capital markets attorney who has front-led so many landmark capital markets transactions, also talk us through this incredible journey and how you started the same.
Sure. So let me start with the second question first as to how I started off. So I graduated from Government Law College, and during 5 years of law, I interned with various law firms. I also got experience, internship experience in litigation and working with a judge, a sitting judge at that point of time. So through my experiences and understanding of various subjects, I felt capital markets would be one field of law that I could have that I would be able to do well in. I think the experience of understanding capital markets also came from studying for company secretary, where securities law was a part of the curriculum that I studied. And I also did the securities law course. So all these experiences put together helped me understand the field of capital markets slightly well. And I had also done an internship at Amachand Mangaldas before I got placed there. And at Amachand, so coming to your question of what is a capital markets, what is the role of a capital markets lawyer? So as a capital markets lawyer, you advise companies which are issuers who come up with fundraising in the capital markets field, or you advise merchant bankers who play an intermediary's role in assisting companies to come up with these fundraising options, or you advise investors who are mostly exiting from the company, either partially exiting from the company through an IPO mode or a alternate fundraising mode, or who are completely exiting the company. So as a capital markets lawyer, you could be advising either of these three entities who play a crucial role in the capital markets on a capital markets transaction. And you could, as a practice area in capital markets, you could be doing debt and or equity and or a combination of two, or you could also be doing what has been famous in the last few years is the practice of REITs in wits. So in my journey as a capital markets lawyer at Amarchand, where I started off, and at AZB, where I've been working for over 6 years now, I've got the experience of working in debt and equity and quasi equity instruments and transactions. And in terms of transactions, I've got the experience of working on IPOs, QIPs. QIPs are basically qualified institutions placement done by listed companies in India, which means that you are coming up with a fundraising for sophisticated investors, to put it very plainly and simply. And I've also worked on rights issues, FCCB transactions, buybacks. So there are various capital markets transactions. And of course, I've also been fortunate enough to work on advisory, which should involve, understanding and reading up of the insider trading regulations and certain other regulations in the capital markets field. So as you rightly put it, capital markets is a very dynamic, has a very dynamic role to play, not just from a lawyer's point of view, because you also understand the economy, the Indian economy in this case, much better. You understand capital markets has a huge role to play in determining how the economy is running, because there are various institutional retail participations happening in capital markets. So as a lawyer, it is your duty to ensure and to advise your clients that there are disclosures made as far as raising fundraising is concerned, and as far as disclosures in an offer document is concerned. And you also inform the issuers and your clients of the importance of parity of information when it comes to putting out information to various stakeholders in the market. So these are the broad guidelines of capital markets.
Wow, sounds both interesting as well as challenging. So, yeah. Now, going ahead with our next question. So capital markets as a subject, is I don't think it's taught in law schools at all. So at what stage of your LLB program did you decide that you will specialize in capital markets?
So it wasn't a very conscious decision to choose capital markets at that point of time. But you rightly pointed out that in the curriculums that we were part of, we did not study capital markets as a separate subject. I did get a flavor of capital markets and securities law in my CS curriculum, where I got a good understanding of what an IPO transaction is, what could be a takeover transaction, and also securities law course, which is a 1 year program where you have experts of the legal field in capital markets who come and give lectures on the subject. And it could be on takeover code, it could be on IPOs, and there are various subjects there, and there's an examination also. So it's a 1 year long course, and through that course also I got a very good understanding of capital markets. And when I applied to Amarchand, where I was also interning, they gave me an offer to work in the capital markets team. And I think I was fortunate enough for capital markets to have chosen me. at that point of time. So I've been working as a capital markets lawyer for over 9 years now. So it's been a roller coaster journey, a long journey for me, but a very fulfilling journey.
So now, add on to that. So, were you passionate about capital markets laws in general, or was it because the career was lucrative and you knew that you're going to be having a secure future if you opt for a field that is niche and not many people are specializing in that?
That's a very good question because I didn't think of it. While I would agree with you that working in a law firm could be a lucrative career, but that's not true. At least when you join as a fresher in a law firm, that's not true for a specific practice area. If you're joining a top tier firm, irrespective of what department you're joining, I think you are assured of a certain retainer fee and a maybe a certain bonus. But having said that, capital markets at this point of time, and maybe in the recent past, it was slightly seasonal in nature. There was a certain cycle, but now, given how capital markets is performing, you see the stock market at all-time high every week. There's just a lot of work, and capital markets lawyers, you wouldn't see a capital markets lawyer sitting free on a weekend. But to answer your question, capital markets as a field was always very interesting for me. I always was interested in understanding how the stock market is functioning. What is the role of, an intermediary in a stock market? You only see the company coming up, let's say, with a fundraising, but what work happens behind the transaction. And there are so many intricacies involved in capital markets, right? Because a wrong disclosure or an incorrect disclosure to the retailers in a cap on a given day could affect the stock market prices. It could have a huge impact on SEBI as a regulator, which is a very active regulator, imposing fines. So I think capital markets as a field has a very macro impact on the economy, and that always intrigued me. And I think that was one of the reasons, that was maybe a crucial reason why I was always intrigued and gravitated towards working on a capital markets transaction. And also, sorry, to add on, one other point is capital markets, I would say, has a very fine tuning between understanding the law and getting a transaction done, because there's a lot of business involved. There's a the one of the huge roles of a lawyer is to understand the company's, the promoter's vision for the business, to understand what there are other commercials involved in a capital markets transactions. So there's a good culmination of interpretation of the law, but also taking certain calls that are required to be taken for a transaction to go through. So I would say that it's a very good mix of law and business as far as capital markets is concerned.
So I think broadly in your case, it was inquisitiveness as well as the spirit of inquiry that were the main anchors. And since you love the interpretation of the law as well as you were passionate about it, and then you pursued a course on securities law. So that kind of branched out and ultimately led you to a career in the field of it, which is something really
Absolutely.
wonderful. That first you read the law and read the letter of the law, study it in detail, and then think of building a career in that very field, then to just experimenting and specializing in the niche area of law. So yeah, that
Yes.
yeah. Good, good, good. Now going ahead with our next question. As a fresher who is, as a graduate who is freshly out of law school, there are so many options that are piled up and lined up. So instead of working as a building a career as an in-house counsel or as a litigator, you chose to be associated with a prestigious law firm. Why so?
Um, so as a law student, GIC gave me the opportunity to get an understanding of various fields of law. So I got an internship opportunity at various law firms. I also got the opportunity to do an internship with the Ministry of Law and Justice, where I got a good understanding of the lawmaking process in India, to understand how think tanks work around framing laws in India, or assisting the government in framing laws. I also did an internship with a sitting judge of the High Court. So I think after having done so many internships and understanding various fields, I was certain that I wanted to work in a law firm. And there were three primary reasons. One is that I do not have lawyers in my family who could have been, a guiding force behind choosing litigation as a career option for me. I also didn't think litigation would, give me a short path of seeing myself reach a certain point at a certain age in my career, because there is a little bit of I think unsurety in maybe litigation. It depends on the kind of matters you get, the access to the right seniors, access to the right matters, and seeing those matters succeed at the courts at the right time. Otherwise, the process could get a little bit frustrating. So maybe because so litigation as a career option wasn't something that I was keen at that point of time. So, and also in-house was not something that I was a lot interested in, because I was always interested in um, in the dynamic of law, which I thought a law firm would be in the best place to provide me that platform, because you get the experience of working on various transactions. You get to work with the best lawyers of the country. You get to work on marquee transactions. And I think those were the factors that really gravitated, or maybe were factors behind me wanting to choose to work in a law firm during the initial years of my career. And I think I've managed to stick around in a law firm for fairly long now. So these were the primary reasons why I chose to work in a law firm. I mean, nothing against working in an in-house. I think in-house provides a great role to a lawyer to get the understanding of not just working on a transaction, but to understand the business needs of the company as a whole. But yeah, I think for me, it's just been maybe a journey that has just uh, culminated into working in a law firm.
So I think in your case, you applied the elimination method and you tested yourself in different atmospheres at different workplaces. You studied different kinds of laws before you decided to intern in that area. And then ultimately, after doing the securities course, you decided that this might be the area for you. And then you could sense that passion in you and about the law, as well as the satisfaction of working at a top law firm that gives you that exposure, that access to resources. So it's
Absolutely.
wonderful how you clubbed both, and then now you have a successful career. So to all the viewers who are watching, it is very important to first test yourself in that atmosphere. A lot of people write emails to me and to our channel that, sir, how do we decide whether we want to build a career in IPRs or to have a career in some other law? You can only do that when you pursue courses, you test yourself, assess yourself on the basis of how it turns out to be. And unless you don't work, unless you don't apply the elimination method, I think it's impossible for you to, because there are so many options now. I think 20, 30 years ago, there was just litigation or doing a desk job. But today, I mean, so many options have mushroomed now. So unless you don't read, study, work, test yourself, assess, and then take a call, that's the only way out. And there should not be any hurry as such that by 23,
Absolutely.
I want to be in court, or by 25, I want to be associated with a top firm, or by 26, I will be doing masters in IPR. So don't have that thing, don't stick to that timeline sheet, which I call on.
Yeah. I think the only message that I have here is that I think it's important to make a sort of an informed decision of what career you want to choose in the field of law. Because, as you rightly pointed out, 20, 30 years back, there were only so many things you could do as a lawyer. Work as a litigator, or maybe work as an in-house lawyer. There weren't even too many law firms around at that point of time. But now, given the number of options that you have as a lawyer, it's important to use the time that you have in a law school to get various experiences, to decide for yourself, which one fits well for you and where do you see a career for yourself.
Great. Now, going ahead with our next question, if you could explain briefly what capital markets are and what laws govern capital markets in India. It's just a brief, just.
Sure. So the two main laws that govern a capital markets transactions would be the Companies Act and what you know as the SEBI ICDR regulations. So the SEBI ICDR regulations is the primary law for any equity transaction that a company wishes to undertake. It could be in the form of an IPO, it could be a QIP, a preferential issue, a rights issue, or various NFPO, or various layers of these transactions. It could be a fast track rights issue, a QIP. So these are the various transactions that you could be undertaking. What the ICDR and there are other allied laws which are important, like the SEBI Act is the master law, which provides, and there are various regulations and rules thereunder. So the SEBI Act provides for what is the expectation of SEBI when there are any transactions that are undertaken, and and the SEBI ICDR regulations is a primary regulation which provides for disclosure requirements and eligibility criteria for various transactions that you're proposing to undertake, and it provides for certain key definitions and concepts that are used, not just for a capital markets transactions, but for how a company should function. Let's say it provides the definition of who a promoter is, what a promoter group is, what do you mean by a KMP, SMP, etc., etc. So this is the primary law, the ICDR regulations, and the authority to undertake any such transaction, capital markets transactions, flows from the Companies Act, which is your Chapter 3 of the Companies Act, Section 42 and 62. So these are the primary provisions of the Companies Act under which a capital markets transactions is undertaken. And to give you a very brief background of what is a capital markets transaction is, to give you a very simple example, there's an issuer company. There's a company that is incorporated under the Companies Act. Let's say it's a private limited company, and the company wishes to undertake a fundraising. So, what are the various means of undertaking a fundraising? Either you go through a debt route or you go through an equity route. If you're going through a debt route, then there are certain regulations under the SEBI Act, which is the debt listing regulations, under which you do a debt transaction, a private placement of debt securities, or you could be wishing to do an IPO, for example, which is basically an initial public offering to retail investors, to qualified institutional investors, and certain other sophisticated investors, HNIs. So institutional and non-institutional investors under your SEBI ICDR regulations. This is the primary mode of undertaking a transaction. It could be through a debt, equity, and maybe a certain other flavors of debt and equity, quasi-debt, quasi-equity, etc. But this is the applicability of the SEBI laws as far as a capital markets transaction is concerned. There are also, you also need to have an understanding of the SEBI listing regulations and SEBI insider trading regulations, depending at
LODR
what
inside a trade.
stage. LODR, exactly. Depending at what stage the company is in and what transaction you are proposing to undertake. If it's already a listed company, then I see insider trading, listing regulations, etc., also have a huge role to play in governing the conduct of the company and the way in which the company needs to come out with certain disclosures to retail investors.
Wow, I think too much reading is involved. You need to be a voracious reader of all the laws. Good, good. So now,
Really, yes.
you've been associated with a prestigious law firm. How has the experience been so far, working for a leading and a prestigious law firm? And what all lessons did you learn from this incredible opportunity that you got at such an early age?
Thank you so much for that. I think you've rightly pointed out that it's been an incredible journey for me personally and professionally. Professionally, because I've got the experience of working on various market transactions, I've got the exposure of front leading various transactions, and even in my initial years at CAM, I got the opportunity to work with the finest and the greatest lawyers practicing capital markets. So the exposure to understanding the law, the applicability of law, giving the right advices to the client, and to ensure that the transaction goes through. These are the various facets that I learned during my, which I still am learning as a lawyer at both, Amachan, where I started off, and AZB, where I'm working. So that's been my professional journey of getting great exposure. And I think personally, I have been rewarded with some really amazing mentors who were my partners, who are my partners in my law firm, an amazing set of clients and colleagues who have always been there, because a capital markets transaction is like a teamwork, you know. It's like, to put it very crudely, it's like a team of army men front leading a transaction, because the timelines could get a little crazy. It could get very demanding. The hours are long. So, as a team, you really need to come together. You need to stick together to ensure that the clients are serviced well and the transaction goes through. And if there are any irregular, regular glitches while you're executing a transaction, those are also pointed out and you find solutions. So to all these aspects of executing a transaction, you need amazing set of mentors and you need amazing set of lawyers to be supporting you. And I think I've been fortunate enough to have those lawyers around me. So I think it's been a great journey for me.
That's fantastic. And now, going ahead with our next question. So, any particular postgraduate or diploma or master's course that you wish to recommend to all the viewers who are watching this, students and lawyers who wish to build a successful career like you have in capital markets? Because this is something as a whole which is not taught in law school, as rightly pointed out by you. There are different laws governing different aspects of capital markets. For example, securities law, Companies Act, etc. So that law students can explore this at an academic front, and then on so that they learn more on the job when they're actually working in that field. So any particular course that you wish to recommend?
Well, there are plenty of courses available in the market. There are a lot of certification courses that are available for those who are looking to get, a basic understanding of whichever field the students are interested in. But I could maybe talk about, the courses that have benefited me personally. So because I did the company secretary course, I got a great understanding of taxation law, which I did not have as much exposure to in my law school. I got great understanding of securities law, which also was something that I wasn't taught in my curriculum. There was company secretarial practice, accounting, and certain other aspects of law and commerce, which I benefited immensely from in the CS course. So that is one course that maybe students can think about. And CS is a course goes well with law, because even if you're working as an in-house lawyer in, let's say, a company, the CS and the legal department are usually combined and they work together, or the compliance and the legal team work together. So you get CS as a degree, I think complements well with a law degree. So for those who are looking to get maybe understanding of taxation, securities law, etc., CS would be a good course. The securities law course also personally benefited me immensely, because I got to learn from, the legal experts in the market. These were partners of law firms, these were practitioners, a retired chairperson of BSc, who came and not just explained and made us understand the concepts, but also shared various experiences that they had of various capital markets transactions that were going on at that point of time. So these were the two courses that benefited me immensely. And if students have any questions around these courses, I'm happy to guide them better and more. But I would maybe recommend these two courses along with a law, depending on how demanding your curriculum is as a law student.
Yeah, in some school, in some law schools, particularly national law schools, the curriculum is very rigorous. So they often have
Absolutely.
subjects codified in their curriculums. But at times when the curriculum is very liberal, and I don't want to mention any of the names of those law schools where the curriculum is super liberal, and where there is an option of attending classes, which is the most ridiculous option. So I think for them, I hope you're making notes and writing down all the courses that Sweta has rightly pointed out, and I'm sure these courses are going to immensely benefit you in near future. So, since you've been a part of so many landmark capital markets transactions, any particular, only if you are comfortable, that you wish to discuss it in brief?
Well, all the transactions have, I think, helped me understand the capital markets field more, better. It could be in terms of getting to understand the clients better, getting to understand the business of the clients better, or getting to understand, the intricacies of capital markets that goes into a capital markets transactions. But I think the one transaction that's close to my heart for many reasons is the buyback of Thomas Cook, and I could maybe talk about it for a little bit because it is in the market. A buyback, so Thomas Cook, as you would be knowing, is into travel, and they wanted to do a buyback. This was just prior to COVID, so in March 2020. So if we have to go back, let's say we're sitting in Feb 2020, they decide to do the buyback. And in March 2020, they announced the buyback. They come up with, because it was a tender offer route, they were required to file what is known as a draft letter of offer, which means you are already letting your public shareholders know that I'm proposing to undertake a buyback, and buyback is undertaken to benefit the shareholders, right? Because you're giving them the opportunity to buy back the shares at a value which is higher than the market value. And so this is to give, maybe it's a form, I would say, for those who understand the concept of a dividend, it is a form to reward your shareholders. So that was the idea behind undertaking the buyback. And just after the DLOF was filed, COVID hit all our lives, and the company's business shrunk to a great magnitude because there was no travel happening. There was no way they did not have enough cash flows to support the day-to-day operations of the company. There were so because of which there were a lot of regular, financial challenges that the company was facing, and they were in the midst of having announced a buyback which would have benefited over 10,000 shareholders of the company. And they knew that there was no way they could fulfill the obligation of completing the buyback. Wherein, SEBI and our role came into being, because we had to write to SEBI. There were various meetings held with SEBI, and there were a lot of, because the buyback regulations, which is a primary regulation that governs how a buyback transaction must undertake, um, very categorically provides that you cannot withdraw buyback after the DLOF, after the public announcement is filed. So in this case, because the DLOF was filed, there was no way they could withdraw the buyback. But because it was a peculiar scenario, and because we knew that the going concern of the company would be massively impacted because of this entire background, there were various representations and applications made to SEBI for them to read down the provisions of the buyback regulations and allow the company to withdraw the buyback, which hadn't been done in the history of Indian capital markets. So it was unprecedented in many ways, and SEBI finally came out with an order allowing the company to withdraw the buyback, not which in SEBI's view, and rightly so, not just benefited the shareholders because forcing the company to complete the buyback obligations would impact the company's financial operations and their day-to-day operations, and would also negatively impact the value that the shareholders would have benefited from the buyback. So these were various backgrounds. I think it was because it was unprecedented in many ways, and it allowed reading of the buyback regulations in a manner that not just benefited the company but also the retail shareholders of the company. It was a landmark case in not just for me as a capital markets lawyer, but also I think for the industry.
That's incredible. Congratulations to be a part of that transaction.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
now, coming to books or literature, you've already discussed about courses. Any particular book in mind that you wish to talk about or recommend to all the viewers who are watching who want to explore this area of law?
Um, Coming to books, I think there aren't. I mean, you obviously need to read the Companies Act, the commentary under the Companies Act, but otherwise, I would urge, because capital markets is not just reading of the law, but also following the market. it's important. The SEBI, BSE, NSE websites provide a lot of access to users, readers, etc., to get information of the various laws that are that govern capital markets. And these laws are there. I don't think there are any commentaries on these laws, so to say, but there are various articles published by law firms which one could get access to very easily to get a basic understanding of the subject matter that they're interested in. I think so. Maybe so. My advice would be that you start off first zeroing down on the laws that you're interested in. As far as capital markets is concerned, it could be takeover, insider trading, maybe public IPOs, in which case ICDR, listing regulations, etc. And then you download these laws from the SEBI website, give it a clean read, a good read, and maybe then start reading up on articles on the subject. And because there's a lot of international jurisprudence on capital markets transactions, you could also be reading the practices followed in other countries to get a basic understanding of what India's practices vis-a-vis other countries, other jurisdictions and geographies.
Very well. So we did mention at the beginning of the session that you're the youngest lawyer from India to have been ranked as a rising star lawyer. So how does it feel like?
It truly feels very special. So, I mean, I had applied for it, not knowing what the result of the application would be. And I vaguely remember, the conversation that I had with my partner while I was applying. I said, it's good that I'm applying for this Rising Star Award recognition and ranking. But what are the odds that I could actually get it? Then, and my partner's response was, that's not in your hands. What is in your hands is that you do good work, and you get the support of your, if you're lucky, you get the support of your clients, you get the support of your colleagues. And I think it takes, as is rightly pointed out, it takes 200 things to work well in the right direction for something to, for you to see a success or a so-called success as you would perceive it. So for me, getting this recognition and the Rising Star Award has been the right things happening at the right time for me, getting the right set of mentors, getting to work on various transactions, having the best colleagues in the market who've always been so supportive, and to get the support of my clients. It truly feels very, very special. But I genuinely have to give special thanks to Zia, who is the managing partner of AZB, who's been such an inspiration to me. Without the support of AZB, I don't think I would have even been in a position to, for the firm to it is important for the firm to first recognize what an asset you are, and then and I think then the industry recognizes. So my biggest thanks goes to AZB and partners here.
Well, Zia ma'am is also my source of inspiration. I have a small portrait of Zia Modi in my office. So yeah, she's been a source
Yeah.
of inspiration not just to me but to many. So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would also, sorry, just to
yeah.
complete, I would also like to thank Varun, Lionel, and Agnik, who are my partners at AZP, who have been, the rock solid support that I always needed. They've always been the mentors, at whatever given time, they've always been there to support me. So thank you for that. And I think at GLC, I was immensely lucky to have the right mentors and seniors to guide me. And my special thanks to Professor Daswani and Pithawala sir, who were just always there to guide me. So I think, yeah, I've managed to get the right guidance from the right people.
Well, not everybody is as fortunate as you are, and I will not expand further. But good that you were guided in the right direction, and there were people to help you out. And it's always a combination of a lot of factors which you emphasized upon. Good things take time, but they eventually happen when you think positively and you work in the right direction. So I'm so happy
Yeah.
that you could able to achieve that, and even being the recipient of the youngest lawyer from India to be ranked as Rising Star Lawyer. So now we have kind of approached the last segment, the end of our segment. And what would be your piece of advice to all the law students and lawyers who wish to build a successful career like you have in capital markets?
Um, I would say three things are very important to succeed in a law firm or in the legal field. One is you need to have the right kind of discipline to train yourself to get better at understanding the law. The second is there's just immense amount of hard work required to work to hard work to get yourself through whether it's a transaction or it's a client you're advising. And because the dynamic of any field of law is so deep that it requires you to understand various laws, find the right case laws to support your argument, depending on which field of law you're in. So great hard work, and I would say patience. Because in this field, and maybe now more than before, there's always a hurry to achieve a certain success, to get the right internship or to get the right law firm to work with. But I think good things take time. So to have patience maybe may seem a little frustrating in the beginning, but definitely rewarding from a long-term perspective. So yeah, these are the three inherent qualities that have managed to get me to this position. So I think my advice would be to yeah, follow these. And definitely I would urge students to follow this platform for them to get a better understanding of law, and to get access to the right people who are there to guide you. So this is something that would definitely help students.
I think especially post COVID, these platforms, virtual platforms, not only the virtual amicus for that matter, but there are so many other brilliant YouTube virtual platforms that are doing exceedingly well. And
Absolutely.
so I hope that they follow, that they subscribe, and then they, share it in all the groups. So thank you
Yes,
so much,
definitely.
Sweta, for taking out time. And I think in near future I'll bother you again, and I'll invite you again on my channel to do a session on how to be a brilliant orator, because you are definitely a wonderful orator. And
Thank
so
you.
I'm so grateful that you took out time from your busy schedule and you did a session and you readily said yes for a session on the virtual amicus on a very important, popular yet challenging topic that you've explored beautifully and made a name for yourself in a very short span of time. To all the viewers who are watching, our email is mentioned on the channel. In case if you still have any queries, feel free to write to us. We'll be more than happy to forward the same to our amicus for today's session. Anything that you wish to say as parting words before we wrap this up?
Thank you, Jay, for inviting me on your platform. I think you're doing amazing work. And it was truly a pleasure speaking with you. It's been a great conversation for me to have with you on a Saturday. And I really, really hope that students benefit of the session. And I really wish and hope to see your channel grow to 1 million followers in the near
Wow.
future.
Well, if speakers of your stature keep coming and doing sessions, I'm going to reach 1 billion. I'm confident.
Yes.
Grateful. Thank you so much for your time, and it's goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.